Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'll be going through PSLE 2020 question number 26. This is a light and shadow question, and this is actually one of the more tricky questions I would say for this year. That year that people are taking that PSLE. So take a look at this. Johnny set up the following experiment in a dark room. So it's trying to tell you that the only source of light is coming out from lamp M. Okay, so the light sensor S on the screen Y gave a reading of 50 units. So we know at the start it is 50 units. So as Johnny moved one of the object in the setup, so it could either move M, X or Y. Okay, the reading decreased slowly to 40, so it becomes 40. Okay, and it is slowly, okay, and then suddenly drop to 0. This 0 unit is suddenly. Okay, suddenly. So we need to remember this part. This is actually one of the key part. Okay, decrease slowly to 40, then drop to 0 suddenly. Okay, so at first start with 50 units. Then they ask you which of the object did Johnny move in which direction such that we can achieve this 50. Okay, we can achieve this 50, 40 slowly, 0 suddenly. Okay, so the concept over here is that from 50 to 40, right, when it decreases slowly, right, it means that the light sensor is getting less light. So this would most likely means that the is either the lamp being moved away or the screen Y, right, being moved away, such that the light sensor is further away from the light source and there's less light hitting the light sensor, therefore it detects less light. So this is something that is happening right now at this stage. So it should be this. Okay, the key idea is this: light source move further away from the object, in this case which is the sensor, less light detected. And the reason is the light rays are spread out, so they are scattered in all directions, and therefore fewer of them are hitting the light sensor. Therefore 50 to 40, this is the decreased part. So then suddenly hit to 0, it means that it probably already hit the shadow zone. Okay, so in this part I'm going to tell you that the answer is 4, and why the answer is 4 only, right? In this case, right, it is really that the screen Y is moving away from plate X. And if I were to visually show it to you on the diagram itself, this is actually how the whole thing would have looked like. Okay, so at first, right, if I move the screen Y further away from the original position, right, this is how it's going to look at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a light ray that is hitting the light sensor. So in this part, okay, let me just draw it this part. So let's take it as this part here. Okay, I'm just going to extend this out. Any part from lamp M hitting this part, right? So over here. So what happened is that the light is spreading out, and then it hit this part, right? This part becomes shadow. So this is so-called like the shadow zone, where there is no light. Okay, so how will it look like is that this whole thing will look a little bit like this. Okay. Okay. So you can see that I'm coloring the whole part to be gray color, is to show you that this part is the whole shadow zone. Okay, and this part above it, there's light. Okay, so if you look at it carefully, right, you can see that some light is hitting, the sensor, so that's why it gives rise to 50 at the start. Okay, so if you move it, if you move this part, right, away, right, you will realize something is going to happen. There will be less light hitting this part, such that at a point, right, this whole thing, right, will be inside the shadow zone. Okay, so once this whole thing hit inside the shadow zone, right, it will become 0 units. So that's why it will become 50 to 40, because as you move away, right, there will be less and less of them getting hit by the light rays. Okay, and more of it get hit inside the shadow zone. So 50, 40, then 0. And the best object to move, right, to be able to achieve these three things, right, it will be option number 4. Move screen Y further away, okay, from X and the lamp. Okay, so in this case, right, this will be how the scenario will play out. Okay, 50 at first, then you move away, right, less light hitting the sensor, less than 50, suddenly the whole thing inside the shadow zone, which I've drawn, becomes 0 suddenly. Okay, the key is suddenly. So that's why number 4 is the correct answer. So let's take a look at why 1, 2, and 3 is not correct answer. If so, if I were to play out the whole thing for number 1, right, lamp M moved towards X. So if I move this towards X, right, so do you realize that lamp N is getting nearer and nearer to the light sensor? So in this case, right, the reading, right, would have increased. At one point, it will at one point the lamp will be more or less in front of the plate X, such that it will be fully in the shadow zone. But over here, right, the light, the data that we get, right, will be something like this: 50. Then because it's moving nearer and nearer, right, they become more than 50. Then after that, at some point, right, when the lamp is in front of plate X, right, it will become 0 suddenly. That means the light sensor is already inside the shadow zone. Okay? Well, this one does not match with what Johnny has given to us, which is 50, less than 50, then 0. So that's why 1 cannot be the answer. Okay, so how about number 2? Okay, number 2, right, when you move the lamp further away from the plate, right, so you are moving the light source further away from the light sensor. Yes, it will become lesser and lesser, but in this case, right, the shadow zone will become smaller and smaller. So you will have a smaller shadow. You will have a smaller shadow, such that, right, it could end up in this kind of situation. Okay, you have 50 at first, right, then after less than 50, because the light source is further away from the light sensor, then it will slowly drop to 0, not suddenly. Okay, because there is so few light rays hitting the light sensor that such that the light sensor cannot pick up any light at all, or it will just detect a very, very low number. Okay, maybe not 0, just a very, very low number. So this one also does not match. Okay, so that's why number 2 cannot be the answer. So number 3, if you put plate X, right, towards lamp M. So what does this mean? You move this one here, right? You obviously you get a larger shadow. A larger shadow. Okay, but why it cannot be the answer? Okay, a lot of students will choose this. Why it cannot be? Because do you realize that if you move plate X, right, that means, right, your M and your light sensor, right, will not move at all. That means the distance of them, the distance between M and S, right, will not change. If they will not change, it will remain 50 throughout, until at a point where plate X is in front of lamp M, then it will become 0 suddenly. So because the questions given to us is it slowly decreases to 40, then it becomes 0. So option 3 cannot be answered, because it will always always remain as 50, because the distance between the light source and the light sensor did not change. Okay, therefore they will detect equal amount of light throughout the whole experiment. So that's why 3 cannot be answered. So only the best answer to describe or to fit into this scenario where we have 50 drop slowly to 40, then become 0 suddenly, is only option number 4. Okay, and with that you can take a look at the drawing. Okay, thank you very much.